All right, how's it going, everyone? I hope you're doing well. I'm going to be breaking down my trade on Ethereum from earlier on this month during the crypto panic event that took place, which was actually really exciting to see. We haven't seen anything that crazy really since like April of last year to the downside and like August of 2024. So I was really excited about it, and I feel like I traded it pretty well. So let me share that with you guys. I ended up making about 16,200 profit across this trade, and I ended up catching this green day right here for about a 20% bounce, I believe. Yeah, 20% bounce. So let me just break down my thought process about the last months of price action, and then also like weeks leading up to it, and most importantly, the days leading up to it. So everyone probably remembers back here, I believe, yeah, like August, September, Ethereum tried to make an all-time high and actually did, but then it failed, right? So we have all these people that started chasing up in these prices, and we never really went anywhere. We kind of just stayed in no man's land, which I consider all of this to be no man's land. Just these really choppy ranges, no major extension of the upside, no major extension of the downside. For me, there's nothing I can do there. Maybe it's someone else's game, but it's not mine. So I haven't touched crypto at all. Like this whole time, it's just been choppy sideways. I consider this randomness. I consider it no edge. Unless you're like a long-term investor in Ethereum, which nothing wrong with that, but I have no idea where Ethereum is going 6 months from now, a year from now. I'm just focused on, a small window of time, whether that's a day, 2, 3 days, where I have edge, and I can capitalize on some really extreme movement. And that's exactly what we saw down here. So again, keep that in mind. There are a lot of people trapped in these prices to the buy side, and that leads to panic whenever those situations do not work properly, right? I mean, everyone and their mom was buying crypto up in here, thinking it was going to $7,000, $10,000, whatever it might be, and it just didn't. So I started to realize that when we started to get these breakdowns like here, I'm like, okay, this could get really interesting where we do see some major liquidation event, major panic, major sell off where there could be a really good bounce trade involved. And yeah, and if you don't know, so the crypto market, super leveraged, right? I mean, some of these exchanges offer 100, 200, 300x leverage, which is essentially gambling, if you ask me, which I'm not a fan of. However, it's how the crypto market is, and there's a lot of over leveraged individuals. And whenever you have all these people using leverage up in here, more in here, and even more in here, that's what leads to this massive sell off of like 50% over like a 2 week period. So that is a huge factor for me. That's really the main thesis of this trade as a whole, that everyone panicked, everyone's scared, everyone's liquidated, and then you finally get that recovery. And I'll explain that more to you guys in a moment. But yeah, really the main action leading up to this trade, we're looking at this range, right? This range was like 3 or 4 months. And again, there was still a lot of hope here, tons of hope, right? So we can call this the hope range. Everyone's hoping that crypto's going to go back up. Everyone's really excited. Ethereum's going all-time highs, right? And whenever we start to actually roll over in these areas, and by that I just mean start to get crushed and we break this low of the range, that's when I start to become interested. I don't think I really I mean, I keep up with crypto. It's just hard not to, but I never really see anything that interesting in it trade wise ever, because it's sideways a lot in my opinion, and just really hard to read. So that being said, when this low broke, I was like, okay, here we might get some crazy sell off, because again we have all this hope from up here. We have even more hope right here. And by that, I just mean over leveraged traders, right? People that are going to get liquidated if something goes wrong because they're on 100x leverage. So if Ethereum moves 1%, their position gets liquidated. If Ethereum moves 10% and they're on 10x leverage, they get liquidated, right? And that is exactly what happened. So the second this low broke, all of this is liquidations, period. I mean, I think I read some headline that there were like $4 or $5 billion liquidated between like 2 or 3 days down here, which is just obscene. And I would assume there's a lot more than that we don't know about, but that's really the whole thesis of this trade, is that people were really over leveraged, really over positioned, and that's what caused this sell off. There was no fundamentally changing news about crypto. There was no major like world news that just shocked everyone and scared everyone. This is just pure over positioning on one side, and really, really optimistic sentiment up in here that shifted very quickly. So leading up to the trade at this point, I'm thinking, all right, if this can sell off really hard for a couple days, I want to bounce it really hard, right? Because there's no fundamentally changing news about crypto. And if anything, crypto has more adoption and more institutional money in it than ever, right? We have ETHA, which is what I traded in, BlackRock, this is BlackRock's ETF. BlackRock has like 9 trillion under management. Do you think they're going to let Ethereum go to zero? No, they're not. That being said, at this point, you're just logically thinking, okay, I'm going to wait based on my rules and what I typically see and my experience in past trades. I'm going to wait to bounce this thing whenever I think that everyone's flushed out, sentiment couldn't get any worse, and the all-time high of fear is in place. And so for me, I just had it on watch all these days. And then whenever we started to break down below about 2100, 2000, I became extremely interested because we had this extension in price of about like 40 or 50% in a couple weeks, which is just obscene. I mean, that's so much money wiped off the face of the earth. And at this point, once we get to these like 2100 prices, I'm thinking, I'm ready to bounce it. I just need to wait for some confirmation. And for me, that looks like volume. And then also going down on like the intraday timeframes, which I'll show you more in here, of like very extended panic like this in the after hours and during the regular hours on extremely high volume. That's what I was looking for. So I actually ended up buying everything in the bottom of this bar. It looks a little bit different on Ethereum, or ETHA, sorry, because it's the ETF, but you can see my green arrows in here. I started buying some here. I even bought more down here. I'm not sure why the execution doesn't pop off, but I bought more somewhere in these prices. Maybe it was like 14, 11, something like that. But I was thinking that, hey, at this point, based on this day right here, and this volume, this is the largest volume we've seen in months. I mean, since, almost like a year. And to me, that's a sign of capitulation, which just essentially is saying that everyone who's out needs to be out and things can become healthy again and the market will revert back to the mean, which is what I'm looking for personally. I'm looking for a couple things. I'm looking for emotion, all-time highs / lows, sentiment, like on Twitter, on the news, things like that. Like if the news headlines are like crypto's going to zero, crypto's over, I'm thinking about buying crypto. There's no doubt about it. If the news headlines are talking about grandmas buying Bitcoin at $300,000, I am looking to short. I mean, that's how the market works. I'm just looking to play at these extremes of fear and greed and position myself properly. I'm also thinking about how are participants positioned, right? So just to be clear, I don't trade patterns. I don't trade little like perfect flags that everyone posts about on YouTube and Instagram. I'm trading off emotion. I'm trading off extremes where the rubber band is stretched so far. People are saying it can only get better. It can, or it's only going to get worse, one or the other. And then I'm looking to revert that and essentially, just revert it. As simple as that. So that was my thought process here. And again, there's not like a perfect pattern involved. I'm just looking at all these things based off percentage, extension. I'm looking for the slope to increase significantly. So if we're in a downtrend, I'm looking for like significant vertical action, which is what we see here, right? We see we're clearly in a downtrend. We break, and then we get that vertical action. We get the largest volume, which is a huge confirmation for me, and therefore I'm involved. When it comes to the actual intraday time frame, where I'm getting positioned, which you can see in here on the 1 minute. I'm buying some in here. I'm buying some in here. It's all based off the daily thesis. As you can see, this is a daily chart of just that big picture context. So with everything I said, sentiment being at all-time lows on Twitter, people are getting liquidated left and right. Friends are texting me about crypto. Even like my mom will ask about stuff like, what is crypto doing? Why is it selling off so hard? Things like that. To me, those are all checks in my favor that the bottom is very close and we're going to get a rebound day like we did of, for what I thought would be 15 to 25%. Ended up being about 20% on that rebound day. I was pretty much long. And if you don't know what long means, it just means you bought I was long from in these prices down here. And my thought process was I wanted to sell most of my position into the first green day that we saw that had a clear changing character where the flow, the tape was just straight to the upside. And that's pretty much what we saw here. So, like I said, I was buying these levels. And at that point, I was thinking, hey, maybe we do get another gap down, in which case I wanted to buy more. I wanted to buy more in these areas because that would be an A++ setup for me if we got a gap down. However, we ended up getting a gap up, which I was okay with as well. I was positioned accordingly from in here and in here. And then I ended up watching the price action that morning. Stock opens. This is the pre-market, so the market's actually not opened yet. When we open, we get a strong move to the upside, and we just hold that morning range, and then we start trending to the upside. So I'm thinking, great, fantastic. I'm in the money pretty good at this point, probably like $5,000, $10,000 up in here. And I'm pretty much just waiting for acceleration to the upside where the slope gets kind of heavy, and then I'm getting all out. And that's exactly what I did. We see consistent trend, clearly holding like kind of a trend line in a way. Again, I don't use any of this stuff in terms of like I'm waiting for my perfect trend line retest, my perfect breakout. I'm just thinking, how is the slope acting? How accelerated is it? What is the volume like? Things like that. And there's also a lot of feel in trading for me. You know, my stock selection, like this whole process we've talked about, is pretty objective. It doesn't change a whole lot. It's based off these things right here, and then also some of this technical chart stuff, which I mentioned, but it's not about a perfect pattern. It's about the feel and the tape, and more so the emotion, if anything. So I ended up selling pretty much 90% of my position where this red arrow is up in these areas. At that point, I had locked in $8,200 in realized gains on the day, within a, whatever that is, 15-hour period. And I had about 10% of my position left, maybe like 5, something like that, right? And I was thinking, okay, I want to add to the rest of that position and see if I can swing trade it for a higher bounce, which we didn't end up getting. We ended up just kind of like failing here and rolling back over. And for me, this is now no man's land. I don't want to be involved. I'm not interested unless we make another really big leg to the downside. You might see me bouncing crypto and making even more next time. But essentially, those were my reasons to sell. I wanted to see the first green day. I wanted to see acceleration on the intraday. And I just wanted to take my meat of the move and move on. You know, I'm not looking to predict. I don't know where Ethereum's going next week, next month. But in certain situations, like I just explained to you guys, I pretty much know what's very likely to come next in most cases. And history repeats in the markets. This stuff's gone on forever. It will never change. People are people, and they will get fearful. They will get euphoric, and there will be huge opportunities like this. This is actually very similar to the silver trade, which I shorted actually a couple weeks ago. I'll break that down as well in another video. But to stay on topic, that was pretty much the trade. On the swing trade, adding back, I actually ended up losing $2,000. That's why I only netted 16.2 after making 18.2 in this first initial move, which you can see here. And then you can also see, let's go to this. You can also see in here, this was the actual day I sold and realized 18,200. And then, like I said, I ended up losing 2,000 on this unrealized, which netted to 16,200. So, yeah, and again, I sold very, very nicely into that first green day, which I'm pretty happy about. And overall, there's not a lot I would change about this trade, This is one of the better trades I've had on a market panic day, and I pretty much just credit that to being prepared. I was prepared for this type of trade in crypto for quite a while now, and some references that I would study that are similar is like April of last year, which I did trade. I did all right in, and then also August of 2024, which was a huge panic in crypto on like a Sunday evening, I believe. And yeah, essentially those past trades prepared me for this one and the review and studying of those trades and things like that. But yeah, that's how I made $16,200 profit in Ethereum earlier on this month, and that's really it. If anyone has any questions, leave them down below. Hopefully, you can take something from this and apply it to your own trading. And if not, tell me why. But yeah, if you have any suggestions, let me know. And that's all I got.